And tonight, we are taking you inside a system on the brink.
Local jails that were designed to hold people awaiting trial that some say are now turning into breeding grounds for those who come out even more dangerous. And what's driving the crisis in our overcrowded jails? To find a solution, we first have to understand that problem. Here's part one of Annie Moore's special report, Justice for All.
Jails, in many ways, are like the canary in the coal mines, used by miners to detect poisonous gas. They're the first sign of a problem we can't always see. But beneath the barbed wire, there are cracks, ones that threaten the very foundation of all our lives.
The regional jail has become the 21st century's public housing for folks that you don't want to see, you don't want to deal with. But the problem is they eventually leave.
People like Brian Akers, a former drug dealer, who for more than a decade helped fuel the drug crisis in southern West Virginia. Between prison and jail, he was incarcerated at least 12 different times.
So you meet people, and most people aren't interested in becoming better. Most people are interested in making better connections.
I can't tell you how many crimes have been committed because individuals were at Southern Regional Jail and they met someone affluent or with access to money, and they're sharing that information with their peers for other crimes to commit.
And those who do try to course correct run into roadblocks. Joanna Vance is a former addict and recovery coach.
People are judged based on that one little checkbox, and it keeps them from getting a job. It keeps them from getting a home. It keeps them from going back to school to pursue careers that they love, because they know that a formerly incarcerated person like themselves can't even get a degree in that because they won't let them do it.
And those who can't escape the system will inevitably land back here at Southern Regional Jail. At last check, the building had twice the amount of inmates it was designed to hold. Staffing shortages are so severe that some correctional officers are working up to 5 16-hour shifts a week. And due to the lack of bed space, inmates claim they're being forced to sleep on wet mats on flooded floors.
I was up there, and when I woke up, there was like that much water in the floor, and I had to walk barefooted to use the bathroom.
Defense attorneys and public defenders say the movement restrictions put in place by the pandemic have only made the problem worse.
The reality is there will always be a phenomenon of persons entering into what we call a Kennedy versus Frazier plea, where you don't admit that you committed the crime, but you admit that there is a likelihood of conviction. And as a result, you're willing to plead guilty to the crime, and those folks often will get probation, time served, some sort of alternative sentencing. That happens so frequently that I am willing to have a felony conviction if I can get out of here.
You've always had people that say that, but I don't remember it being at the level it is right now. Like, I don't ever remember a time that I've gone to arraignments for new indictments and had people saying it.
Now, you may be thinking that these are inmates and they get what they deserve. But what you may not realize is that the majority of these inmates are pretrial defendants, meaning they haven't had their day in court. And while you may not be able to see them, you're paying for them in more ways than one. We'll show you how in part 2.
Thank you for that report, Annie. In Raleigh County, for example, the jail bill accounts for more than 10% of all taxpayer dollars. It's money that comes out of your children's classrooms, local parks, and more. So what's the solution? Our Annie Moore will talk to those on the front lines of this fight with some ideas coming up in part 2. Yesterday on WVVA News at 6, we brought you the story of a jail system on the brink.
Overcrowded conditions with problems that are spilling over to the outside. So how do you protect society from some while providing a path for freedom to others? Our
Annie Moore is searching for solutions in part 2 of Justice for All.
Overcrowded jails and their expense to taxpayers are not unique to West Virginia. In the last couple years, several cities and states, including New York, have tried to reduce their jail population by eliminating the bond system for nonviolent offenders.
The research has shown that the less time someone stays in jail, the less likely they are to lose their job, lose their home.
But Gary Vaughn, a bondsman in Beckley, argues that the bond system is critical to getting defendants back to court.
We don't have the manpower, law enforcement doesn't, to go out and find these people. So they just stack up until they get caught for something else down the road. Then they're in jail with no bond because they didn't go to court. Now they're high risk.
In fact, according to the regional jail system, the #1 offense driving the overcrowded conditions are capious warrants. People who aren't showing up in court, which ties into the next leading offense.
They need that next breath of air in the drug that they're waiting for to get them high to survive, to not be sick. So showing up to court seems really minuscule versus chasing another fix.
In recent years, Raleigh County has been successful in reducing its jail bill from $3 to $2 million a year through weekly jail meetings with key players in the justice system.
We look at who could possibly be a good candidate for a PR bond. We also talk about ways to resolve cases. There are plea offers made that day that I can bring back to my staff here for them to relay to their clients.
The county even has a designated person in Steve Davis to oversee that process.
Well, the biggest thing I think the legislature could do would be pay time served. That would probably cut the bills in half.
We're constantly reviewing incarcerated cases to determine the best way to get them resolved and reduce the overcrowding issue at the jail.
The county was among the first in the state to use ankle bracelets as part of its community corrections program. Unlike home confinement, these are low-risk offenders who are offered the opportunity to stay out of court by altering certain behaviors.
It gets them away from the friends and the influences that they go to. Not like they're being unfairly targeted by someone. They seek it out themselves, but by bringing them here, it breaks that routine.
To learn more about how the program works, I gave the ankle bracelet a try.
It's locked tight. And then
So the idea is to get it so tight that you can't pull it off.
yes. When you went to McDonald's, we were watching your movements using pursuit mode, which updates about every 15 seconds. So we visually saw it happen, and we'll play that for you on the video here momentarily. But I got 2 text messages saying that you'd been there twice.
But more than keeping them out of trouble, administrators say it keeps them in treatment. And after 11 turns in jail, it was treatment that finally helped Brian Akers break free.
When COVID hit, the jails are still taking people. People are still getting arrested and coming to jail, but you can't transfer anybody. For a long time, they just filled up and filled up. It got to where they were 3 times what they're supposed to be at.
The judge sent him to a treatment center in Summersville. Through therapy, he learned about some of the underlying issues fueling his addiction, including the brother he feels he left behind.
Because we did drugs together. We did drugs together the day he died. And normal people think that would straighten you up, but it doesn't. Send me farther down that hole. And there's some years, and from 2015 to 2020, there's some foul stuff in my story.
It was a story he got to rewrite through recovery. And now, as a recovery coach, he works to help others do the same.
They say secrets keep you sick. And it's one of the things I learned is get out there and talk to people.
As he says, the walls we build around people should maybe be the ones we work a little bit harder to break down. Here for you in Beckley, I'm Annie Moore, WVVA News.
Welcome back. The new national park designation for the New River Gorge is drawing thousands of new tourists into southern West Virginia. It also sparks renewed interest into one of its hidden treasures, a mysterious face carved in stone. Our Annie Moore is taking a closer look at what's driving more people to this tourist hotspot.
A mystery in the mountains. Walking through this forgotten trail of the New River Gorge, you could easily miss it.
People have been going nuts trying to find this thing.
We went out looking for the rock with David Sybray, one of the authors of West Virginia Explorer.
There's this magic about it. We now know somewhat about who carved it, a Mr. Johnson, who had been a miner who had lived in this area many years ago. And something inspired him to take this rock and to carve a face in it.
Sybray says Johnson likely carved the rock in the 1950s, a time when he was reported to be living nearby. Even with the right directions, the rock can still be difficult to find for even the most adventurous explorers. But if the legend and lore is true, those who do make it may find fortune. Is it true that it brings you luck?
I don't know that it's true that it brings you luck. I want to believe maybe it brings you luck. It's a cool little gig that makes you want to go out there and find it.
I have heard that it brings you luck if you rub its nose, and I've actually come down here on occasion just in case that was actually true.
You may find directions at the water stand outdoors in Fayetteville, but they don't give out the directions to just anybody. They want to make sure that those who traverse these trails do so with care.
They know it's around the New River Gorge Bridge. That gets them close because the bridge is just right over here in the corner. But it's far enough away that it's still a challenge to find this thing.
A face keeping a watchful eye over this wild and wonderful land. Here for you in Lansing, I'm Annie Moore, WVVA News.
Thank you for that, Annie. Now to